So. Alright, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us in this place called comprises, one that has traditionally been a meeting place and a place of shared stories, connection, and learning. My name is Jill. I'm the Outreach and Communications Specialist here at AWA. And before we begin the presentation tonight with Gavin, I'm going to do a land acknowledgement. So I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge this place we gathered tonight as the ancestral home of the Treaty 7 signatories, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, including Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations. And this is also within the Métis Nation home. As a provincial organization, we serve the entire province of Alberta, which also includes treaties 4, 6, 8, and 10. We express gratitude and respect for these lands and commit to advancing reconciliation with Indigenous peoples to ensure justice, equality, and sustainability for all people and the natural world we rely on. I'm going to pass the mic to my colleague Cameron, who will be able to introduce our speaker this evening.
Hello everybody. I'm Cameron Hunter. I'm a conservation specialist here at the Alberta Wilderness Association. I'll introduce Gavin as I have a connection to each other. We're both birders, so he's better at it than I am, but I'm still learning. But that is how we met. So we met through a random day, a western sandpiper, which you can now look at in the book if you would like. Rare migratory bird in Calgary actually showed up, and that's how we met. Everyone kind of showed up at this bird trying to see it. It's a tiny little thing walking on the shore of the wetlands, just I guess east of the city, or in the city actually. And that's when we first ran into each other. I think that was back in 2018, 2019. We're both short memory, I'm not so sure. I could probably go to eBird to find out. But yeah, I'd like to introduce Gavin. So Gavin has been birding, I think, ever since he was a young boy, around 7 years old. And yeah, well, he's made it his living. So he now is a birder all around Calgary, all around Alberta, and even around the world. So he's kind of brought into international travel and tours, but he always kind of returns back here. He wants to kind of build up that birding community in Calgary, in Alberta. And he's recently released a book that you, or some of you, may have purchased tonight. And a quick little thing that I may not remember told this all from here is that Gavin does hold a renewable resource management diploma from the University of Lethbridge as well, and he has worked in environmental consulting as well before he started, or I think during he was doing metal art birding, which now is the owner and operator of Fins. Yeah, I would like to hand it over to Gavin.
Does that work? Cool. Yeah, it's good. We just put it here. How's that? Good. All right. Thanks everyone for coming. Yeah, today I'm going to talk a little bit about my new book, Birds of Alberta, as well as a little bit of an overview of birding in Alberta. I'm going to talk about kind of a few things that led to us releasing the book and why it was a good time to write this book, and then also talk about some of the spots that bird in Alberta, some of the different habitats that we have. There we go. So why a new field guide for Alberta? So the question I get asked a lot, and starting over here, we have the Birds of Alberta by Salt and Will, which then we have another book called Birds of Alberta by Salt and Salt, and then Birds of Alberta by Chris Fisher, John Acorn. That's kind of the guide that a lot of people have had. Really popular book. And now we had Field Guide to Birds of Alberta with myself and David Scott. And I guess the question is, why do we need 4 books on the Birds of Alberta dating back to 1958? Why is the one from 1958 still not, as up to date? Well, there's a number of reasons. And this is something that Dave and I talked about, on a trip to Highwood Pass in November of 2023. So a few years ago, 2.5 years ago now, we kind of, were driving up there. I was living in Lethbridge at the time in David's basement. And, we were driving up to Highwood Pass, about a 2-hour drive from Lethbridge, and we were just kind of talking about this. And, you know, it's something we've talked about before, like someone needs to write a field guide to the Birds of Alberta. What we have now is now 25 years old. It's lots changed in 25 years. Which then brought us to say, well, no one else is probably gonna do it, so why don't we do it? And that ended with us contacting Heritage House here, which was the publisher that published the book. And we heard back right away, within a couple weeks. We're like, yes, we want to publish the book, please send us over the full manuscript of the book. The problem with that is that the full manuscript didn't exist, and we only wrote 12 species accounts that we sent them. So then it became, okay, can you do it by the end of the year? So we agreed to that, which probably wasn't the best idea, because that involved writing 335 species accounts over the course of, you know, the next 12 months, which was a lot of work. But yeah, it was really rewarding, so I'm glad we did it. But again, going back to why we need this new field guide, why we were talking about that in the first place. Birds like this. So I'm sure a lot of people here recognize these two birds. So there's white-faced ibis and black-necked stilt. Both of them are pretty common, right? Like you can go out to Frank Lake, Weed Lake, pretty much anywhere east of the city, south of the city, north of the city. Maybe not west of the city so much, but pretty close to Calgary, you can see these birds without too much trouble. They're around, right? That wasn't the case for any of the other field guides. Black-necked stilts were pretty much just down in County Lake. If you saw them anywhere else than that, that was a big rarity. They were pretty rare. Now I would call them common. Same with white-faced ibis. They bred in the far southeastern corner of the province, and they've just expanded in the last, 20 years. They're now breeding in numbers north of Edmonton. So changes like that happen all the time. There's also birds like this. Does anyone know what this bird is? Eurasian collared dove, yeah. No other Birds of Alberta field guide until this one has had Eurasian collared dove. And it's not that they left it out, it's not that they missed it, it's that there weren't Eurasian collared doves here until the early 2000s. And those books were published before that, so adding things like that, now they're in pretty much every little small town in southern Alberta. You can go to, High River and someone's bird feeder and they'll have 6 of these in their yard. So things like that have changed, they're common now, they've really expanded. There's a lot of changes to the birds that occur in Alberta. Another look at this is something like a mountain plover that used to be breeding in the southeastern corner of the province. Now they're not there anymore. Haven't been seen in probably over a decade. So things like that, birds coming in, birds that are no longer found here. But also splits. This is a winter wren. And in the previous books, only winter wren existed. There was winter wren, and it was just that, and that was fine. But now, we've split into the Pacific wren, which is found in the Rocky Mountains and the foothills, and winter wren, which is the one in the boreal forest. So now there's two birds that really need to separate them by song. It's a really tough idea visually. I would argue it's very, very difficult to see one and be able to identify without hearing any calls. But based on range, we now have both Pacific wren and winter wren in Alberta. So that's a change that we had to make. Another thing is, who here can identify the hoary redpoll and the common redpoll? Which one?
Hoary, the on the left.
Yeah, the one on the left is the hoary,
Yeah.
and the one on the right is the common. They're both
They
redpolls
don't
now.
do it.
Yeah, hoary redpoll no longer exists. I've spent hours and hours going through redpoll flocks looking for hoary redpolls, but now they're just redpoll. So in the previous books, there would have been a page for border redpoll and a page for common redpoll. Now it's just redpoll. They've been lumped, they're considered the same species. Another bird like this has been split as well. So this used to be called the mew gull up until a few years ago, which it was split from the European formerly subspecies, but now full species, which is called common gull. And it would have been fine if they kept the name mew gull like they did with winter wren, right? It wouldn't really have to change anything. But they decided that this bird should now be called a short-billed gull. So changes like that happen all the time. Field guides get dated very quickly, and this is an example as to why, but you can see the difference between a ring-billed gull that has this one showing a little bit of color on the bill, but mostly an unmarked bill, very small, dark eye, darker mantle shade than the ring-billed gull, and then white tertials, like this very broad white tertial band here. And this is a bird that's not common. They do breed in Alberta by Lake Athabasca, but they come through Calgary every year. There might be 2 or 3. So they're not a common bird, but they're common enough that they're possible to see. So we wanted to include it, and we had to go with the new name. Does anyone have any idea what this is? Oh, warbling vireo? Yeah, you're right. Do you know which warbling vireo though?
The eastern.
That's a lucky guess, because this is an eastern. I know that because I heard it singing. It's an eastern, but just by looking at it, you can't tell. And that's a split that came last summer. So it's really, it's always changing, and we get both of them here. We have eastern warbling vireo, on the eastern side of the province, the prairies, like go to the River Valley and Medicine Hat, you're gonna get eastern warbling vireos. Go to Banff, there's western warbling vireos. Somewhere in between that, pretty much right in Calgary, we get both. So it's it's a kind of tough thing to write in the field guide, and we don't really understand their ranges too much, but we tried our best. So we'll see how that might be something we need to fix down the line. But we were able to make that last minute update last summer, so I was really happy with that. Also, things like AWA lists. So this is all the people, all the different taxonomies that like to decide and argue about what's a species and what's a subspecies and what isn't. Decided that why do we have like 3 or 4 different taxonomies that all say different things? Why don't we just make one, and everyone agrees to disagree or agrees to agree on some things and makes compromises elsewhere? And that's what our book is based off, the taxonomy, and that book is based off the AWA list. So you'll see a few different names, and the ordering changed more than anything really. But there's different names, different things have been split. Like I was talking about short-billed gull, there's now northern yellow warbler, there's now northern house wren, American herring gull, which is another split. Just those other house wrens, those other yellow warblers, those other herring gulls just don't occur in Alberta. So we have the same one. If I'm out birding and I see herring gull, I usually just say herring gull. I forget about the American part. And now there's a lot more citizen science out there. There's a lot more data that we can use, a large part due to eBird, and people getting into birds through the app Merlin. But with eBird, we're able to look up, species ranges. We're able to look up the best places to see these birds. We're able to see a lot of data that really, before this, when the other people were writing these field guides, they didn't have access to that. So we had access to a lot more information, which was really helpful. Another question we get asked is this, quite a lot. Alberta's bird list of 440 species. I think that's different than what's in here. I think there's 438 here. There were 2 birds added to the Alberta checklist in the last month. The Vermilion flycatcher and Ross's gull. So it's already out of date. About a month after it was published.
Job security.
So there's 2 more birds now that we need to put in that checklist. But there were enough that were rare that we just thought if we put those in, it's just going to confuse people. We don't want to put all those really rare species in. So we kind of classified birds in a certain way, which was this. So we have a yellow warbler here, we have a spruce grouse, and we have a sapling gull. We kind of draw the line at sapling gull as to what is common enough to get a full species account. We figure yellow warbler is quite a common breeding bird, shouldn't have too much trouble finding yellow warbler. Spruce grouse, it's uncommon, it's, it's exciting if you run into it. But they're rare, and sapling gull is pretty rare. They come through really at this time of year, large water bodies. This is the time to look for them on Glenmore Reservoir and Frank Lake, Lake Newell, places like Cooking Lake and Frank Lake up further north. They do pass through the Bronson away from the Salton Sea up to the Arctic to breed. But anything rarer than that is really pretty rare. You don't have a great chance of seeing it, so like birds on the bottom row here, like red-throated loon. Even though red-throated loons breed in Alberta in the Caribou Mountains, the only way to get in there is with a helicopter and Argo, so I'm gonna guess that most people aren't going there to see red-throated loons, and seeing them on migration is pretty exciting. There's nowhere that you can really go where you can see red-throated loons regularly. Same can be said about western bluebirds. They're seen every year, but where? Somewhere in the southwest corner of the province, somewhere in the mountains, but it's not predictable. And a bird like northern cardinals just show up pretty randomly. But it's a pretty cool looking bird, so I thought I'd put it in there. But then we get to the birds, and these all, the birds on the bottom row all here have abbreviated species accounts, so they're in the back of the book. They're one of the 29 species in the back pages that have, they have a third of a page species account talking about, because it is possible to see. These are possible to see too, but can anyone identify all three of these birds? Anyone have an idea what these are?
Cameron.
Is that a purple sandpiper,
Yeah.
a brambling, and a yellow-throated warbler?
Yeah. Do you recognize that yellow-throated warbler?
That was your backyard.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so these are examples of birds that did not get a page at all. Purple sandpiper, there's only 2 records of. I think there's less than 10 records of brambling, and there's 4 records of yellow-throated warbler. So if you run into one of those, that's very rare. So we thought, they're not gonna get a full species, they're not gonna get a full species count or an abbreviated count, because the book would just be too long at that point. We'd have 103 other birds, 105 other birds in there now. We'd still be working on it. Then this question, is Alberta any good for bird? A lot of people ask, yes, okay, that's a good answer. That's, outside of Alberta, I don't hear that very much, that's good to hear. I'm trying to change the narrative there a little bit. And I think people are listening. I think Alberta's really getting on the map as a good birding destination now. And a lot of that is due to this habitat diversity. So this is actually the AWA's map of the natural areas. Of where protected areas and natural areas. So you can see there's the prairies down here, parkland, boreal, foothills, and then the Rocky Mountains, and a little tiny bit of Canadian Shield. And this is the map from, I think, page 12 of the book that we have. Very similar, showing the different habitat regions, the different natural regions. And just due to these natural regions, look at where they all kind of come together. Right around Calgary here. That's kind of crazy. We can see a lot of birds within an hour and a half drive of Calgary, just because of that habitat diversity. And throughout the province even more so. Like up in the Boreal Forest up by Cold Lake, there's a lot. I'll talk a little bit about that more. But, it's lots of birds in the grassland area that aren't found in the mountains, that aren't found in the Boreal. So I'm gonna talk about those regions a little bit more. So this is the Boreal Forest. You have like black spruce bogs and all these different species. These are species that are pretty much, black-backed woodpeckers found in the mountains, and so is the corn sparrow found in the foothills. But most of these birds are pretty much only found in the Boreal Forest of Alberta, and not in really any other natural region. Black-throated green warbler, Canada warbler, Philadelphia vireo, and this is probably the most sought-after bird when I'm guiding up in Cold Lake for people to see, and that's you know what that is? Full iron, loud. It's a warbler. Connecticut, yeah, Connecticut warbler. It breeds nowhere near Connecticut. Cold Lake is not close to Connecticut. I actually have a friend who was born and raised in Connecticut, who then moved to Edmonton and saw his first Connecticut warbler. But yeah, the boreal forest is a great spot for birding. Long daylight hours, you can get out and bird quite a bit, it's awesome. And then we have the prairies. And these are birds here. This is like one of my favorite photos, with the two lark buntings and the pronghorn. But these birds here, thick-billed longspur, chestacabra longspur, burrowing owl, upland sandpiper, those are birds that really aren't found in other areas. I mean, upland sandpiper is found a little bit, white-faced ibis are found a little bit in other areas, but they reach their highest density in the prairies. And, you know, there's not many places where you can easily access boreal forest prairies and then have just as easy access to the mountains, where there's totally different birds as well. And I mean, even from the Southern Rockies up to Jasper, you have black-headed grosbeaks in Waterton, common bird there, and then you have golden-crowned sparrows in Jasper. In between you have dusky grouse, really cool display. If you ever get a chance to see that display, that's a really cool thing. You get on a hike in you know, like later half of April, beginning of May, that's a cool thing to look for. If anyone here's ever seen that, I'm sure you agree, it's a really neat display. Booming, low hooting. And northern pygmy owl, these things are evil, if you're tricky. This one has a little bit of blood on its beak. I was sitting there watching it, and a bowl came out, and it came like right up to me. And I think it was thinking that if I was near it, it wouldn't get eaten by the pygmy owl. It was wrong. And it had, pygmy owl there had a nice meal. American dippers, it's our only aquatic songbird. They just jump in and out of rivers, and even in the winter, like it's freezing cold, they're going in and out of rivers looking for aquatic invertebrates to eat. Common raven, I mean, that's kind of the quintessential mountain bird in my opinion. It's seen basically everywhere in the Rockies, hopping around, you know, anywhere, any parking lot in Banff has a couple ravens in it, I think, so. Yeah. And then, you know, we're in Calgary, so I might as well talk about Calgary. Calgary is probably one of the best urban cities, or urban birding cities in North America. We have, it helps our geography a little bit. On the west side, it's like all coniferous trees, and the east side is open wetlands, and just habitat diversity on its own. We have wood ducks, the Inglewood Bird Sanctuary, I know that's kind of a fan favorite of everybody. But in migration along the Bow River and in some parts of the Northwest, we have warblers coming through. There's a chestnut-sided warbler. Warblers breeding in the boreal forest, I think mostly in the Peace region probably. BC, Grand Prairie, Port St. John, that area are coming down through here, avoiding the Rockies on their southbound migration. So we see some of those in August and September. We have great horned owls. I took this in somebody's backyard. They're, you know, fairly prevalent in a lot of neighborhoods with mature trees throughout the city. And along the Bow River, we have lots of waterfowl passing through in the winter with wintering swans, which we're really lucky to have. If you lived in Edmonton, you wouldn't see a goose until March. You'd probably see a lot, you know, January 1st if you live anywhere near the river. Yellow-headed blackbirds. Growing up in the east, that's not a bird that we get at all. So seeing yellow-headed blackbirds even in the city is pretty insane to me. Same with Calliope hummingbirds. This is the smallest bird in North America. We have breeding in the city of Calgary. So it's, you know, a greatly diverse city. I think somebody at one point has seen about 250 species in Calgary in a year in the city limits, which is pretty impressive. That's a lot of work, but I mean, just showing that can be done to me is pretty impressive for the city. I'm going to just talk about 5 of my favorite birding locations in Alberta. Who here's been to Cold Lake for birding?
Years and years ago.
Okay. I highly recommend going to Cold Lake. I'm going there next week. It's probably my favorite place to bird in Alberta. I'll probably say that about every place I'm talking about, but Cold Lake's really good. you have 22 breeding warbler species. And I just came from Point Pelee, you know, you have lots of warbler species in Point Pelee, but they're all migrating, right? It's a different kind of birding. When they're breeding, they're all on territory, they're in their preferred habitats and they're singing. So it's a really cool thing to see. Highlights there, Connecticut warbler, which I talked about earlier. Blackburnian warbler, Nashville warbler, they reach the western end of their range near Cold Lake. So they're not down further west in Alberta. Cold Lake's right on the Saskatchewan border, so Cold Lake's the place to see them in Alberta. And yellow-bellied flycatcher, which is just a real tough bird to see in the province. But Cold Lake has some areas that they're yellow-bellied flycatchers. The lake also attracts many, you know, in quotes, what I call regular rarities. So like Sabin's gull, Pacific loon, Argent kern, Paris-the Jaeger. The late spring cold front brings so many of these things down onto the lake. It's a huge lake, it's about 25 kilometers across. So kind of one of my dreams is to get out on a boat on that lake and just see what's out there. And maybe I'll make that happen this year, we'll see. But it's, you know, I've seen some cool things on that lake just with the spotting scope, scanning the lake. So it's not just the warblers there, it's also the lake itself. And there are many other wetlands around there that, you know, support yellow rails, lacon sparrows, Nelson sparrows, and lots of shorebirds like white-rumped sandpiper. They're one of the best places for white-rumped sandpiper I've found. The other one is Lake Newell. Now is the time to go to Lake Newell, right now, this week of May. For some reason, Red Knots decided that they like Lake Newell, and they like to spend, you know, 10 days there every year. And they don't really like anywhere else in the province. I'm not really sure why it's a man-made lake. But anyways, they like it, and they go hang out there on the same little sandbar, with ready turnstones, and then sometimes earlier in May there's windmills. It's also like, has kind of an oasis effect, because it's out in the middle of the prairie. You have these stands of trees where you can get gray cheek thrush, Harris's sparrows, and a lot of these boreal breeders that are cutting across the prairies, they don't really have anywhere to go. They're not gonna land somewhere without trees. So like Tillbrook Provincial Park, even like some rest stops on the highway that have trees can be great for birding. See like blue-headed vireos, black-throated green warblers, all sorts of things, and sometimes some pretty rare stuff shows up in those little stands as well. For years we've never wild horse. Yeah, it's out of the way. It's out of the way. You don't go there by accident. It's like in the far southeastern corner of Alberta, basically right in the corner of Saskatchewan and Montana. So it's south of the Cypress Hills. Great spot to see Chesapeake longspur, thick-billed longspur, Barrett's sparrow, sprags, pipits, brewers, sparrows, burrowing owls. Probably the best place by far to see large buntings in Alberta. But it is, it's far, and I kind of like it out there because you don't see anybody else. You're just kind of out there. Beautiful landscape. I really encourage anyone who hasn't been there to go check it out. One of the last remaining areas that greater sage-grouse can be found, you can never expect to see one. They're just in the area. There's, you know, probably about 100 left in the province, so they're not common at all. But just being out there, I've been out there in late August, and you have all these longspurs staging for migration, like flocks of a couple hundred of them. So it's a really great location, wild horse. Combine it with like a camping trip in the Cypress Hills, and you're all set. It's a great spot to go. And then waters and lakes. I feel like I kind of had to talk about a mountain park. But this one's probably my favorite for birding, in my opinion, the best one for birding. It's not as busy as Banff or Jasper, but you still have lots of great birds, and I find there's different birds there. You have Labs-like bunting and black-headed grosbeaks, which are not easy to find in any of the other parks. They're just kind of restricted to that southwestern corner of Alberta. Stellar's jays are also there. Harlequin ducks, great place to see calliope hummingbirds. I've had them flitting around, buzzing me, and you know, the falls are a great place to see American dipper, Cameron Falls right in town. So these places are some of my favorites. I could probably stand up here and talk about places to bird in Alberta all night. It's you know, something I wrote a book on it, so I'll just say I like it. But yeah, and last one I'll talk about is Whitford Lake. Now this is one probably not a lot of people have heard of, right? Does anyone know where it is? Yeah. it's, I wanna put it on the map a little bit more. Shout out to Peter Thompson, who kind of birded this place pretty hard. But it's about an hour and a half northeast of Edmonton. And it's the only place in Alberta that I've had 100 species in a single location. It's got great shorebird habitat, it's got deep water, there's a lot of ducks, diversity of ducks is insane. Shorebirds, especially in August is the time to go there. And when you get fall migration, you get the passerines passing through, it's a really great spot. It's a shame that more people don't go there, because I think it's worthy of a mention. So I'm here, I'm talking about, so over the course of writing this book, I kind of got to thinking about what would be the route to convince people to come to Alberta as the way to see the most birds over the shortest amount of time. And so the simple answer to that would be to visit all the different habitats. Visit the boreal forest, the parkland, the prairies, and then foothills, mountains. And so this is the route I came up with. Fly into Edmonton, go up here. Whitford Lake's around here, so we're gonna go to Whitford Lake, go to Cold Lake, down to Brooks, down the Cypress Hills across with Waterton, and back to Calgary and bird the foothills around Calgary. This is similar to the route of when we did a big day. So we tried to see as many species as we could in 24 hours, and drove from Cold Lake to the Crow's Nest Pass in one day. We started at midnight. Our first bird of the day was black-backed woodpecker. We found where they were nesting and heard chicks squawking at midnight. So that was bird number one. Drove down here, throughout the day birding all the way down. We ended up with I think 190 species, just about, maybe just a little less than that. I can't remember the exact number now. But we thought, okay, if we can do that in a longer period of time, we can actually bird these areas properly, we'll be able to see a lot more species than that. So Dave and I are really excited. We're going to be doing a special Alberta birding tour, where we hope to see 200 to 225 species, the two of us, over the course of next June, sorry. So that's something I'm really excited for. I'll have David joining me on that one as well, who I wrote the book with. So we hope to have a great time. It's we've spent a lot of time looking into that itinerary, so I'm really excited to get that one off the ground. So yeah, thanks for coming. I appreciate everyone's support and all the kind words everyone said about the book. If you haven't seen it already, I have a table over there if you want to take a look. But yeah, I've opened it up to questions now. Anyone, I didn't talk about something anyone was wondering about or has any questions after looking at the book, yeah, I'm happy to answer them. Yeah, we didn't worry about that. Yeah, we didn't put hybrids in the book. We could have. It just would have been. Hybrids are so variable too. Where do you? Yeah, it would have been. It would have been a whole other can of worms open that we didn't really want to open to get into. But yeah, hybrids do occur, especially in Alberta. We're kind of in the hybrid zone for just about everything. That's because we're right at the east and west, so we have our flickers are intergrades of red shafted and yellow shafted. We have hybrid, common, barrows, golden eyes. A lot of things intersect here. Sapsuckers, for example. So that's why we end up with a lot of hybrids around here. Some duck hybrids, and then they just happen. But yeah, that's it's definitely something to be aware of. For sure.
What's the rarest species you've seen in Alberta?
Ooh, that's a good question. I've seen a couple that were first or second records for the province, so probably those. Pink-footed goose is one that comes to mind for me. Put that down at Frank Lake last year. least tern. Tundra bean goose as well, so I don't know the first record of that one, that was back in 2019 down in Lethbridge. David actually found that one. Which was nice when I found the pink-footed goose, because I don't get even that out. Yeah, there's a lot of rare birds that show up, so, prairie warbler's another one in November, so, yeah. Yes?
This is probably a silly question, but I'll ask it anyway. Do most of the birds migrate from the south up through here in the spring and then go north? Or do some of them like hang around for the summer and the fall?
A lot do, I mean, there's a lot that hang out all year.
All year, yeah.
You know, we maybe have like, it's less than 100 species that are here, kind of from January to, December to the end of February. It's not a huge list of species, that are regular at least. Most of the birds in the book probably breed in the province, but there are some that just pass through as migrants as well. It's a real mixed bag.
Where's your book available?
It's available at that table over there.
Are you selling it anywhere else?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much everywhere. Yeah, it's on Amazon, it's Indigo. Yeah, I think pretty much anywhere you can buy books. It can be purchased.
But he'll sign it if you buy it.
Yeah, I won't be anywhere else. Yeah.
How did you get started in birding? Like, you're a pretty young guy.
Yeah, I got started young. I mean, and my dad's a bird biologist, right? So I kind of got into it that way. He actually took me to Point Peely. We lived in Southern Ontario, we lived in Guelph. I was growing up, so it took me to Point Peely for a weekend. Saw a few birds and just kind of kept going. Haven't slowed down since, so that's kind of where I got the start. And yeah, it's just, been a passion of mine. Since I was, about 7 years old, 6 or 7.
Can you clarify again how you made the decision to go from the 400 and some birds in Alberta down to the list? Just want to make sure I get it correctly.
Yeah,
How
so,
did you make that decision?
it's pretty arbitrary.
Yeah.
It was really based on, what we felt if you went to a specific location in Alberta at a certain time of year, could you expect to see that bird? If the answer was no, then we usually didn't give it a full species count. For the abbreviated counts are just the rare species that show up every 1 or 2 years that are more regular than others. The other ones are seen very infrequently. There's some that have only been seen once or twice. Those didn't get. They're all in the checklist in the back, but they didn't get it right up.
Do you have any recommendations for gear like binoculars or telescopes for people who have bad vision? Like do you take people who can't really see well on your trips and do you provide binoculars, or should we have binoculars when we take the kids birding?
I would always, you can go birding without binoculars, but I would use binoculars. This is something that I see that I think is going to change birding in the next 10, 15 years. I think everyone's going to have image stabilization binoculars and optics. The technology's getting very good. We're getting very close to having that kind of across the board. There's a few companies that are offering it right now, but in probably 5 years, it's going to be kind of the new standard with very high quality optics and image stabilization, which for scopes, you had a tripod, it takes away all the wind shake. You can be shaking and it has a much more stable image. So I see that as being a real change coming in birding very soon. And I think, if you've, trouble with that'll really change things. Hopefully for the better.
Maybe we'll do one more question. I think I saw one more hand go up. Did you? Put you on spot.
Think fast. Yeah, think fast. Oh, it's gone. Sorry, I was preoccupied with binoculars and thinking.
Okay, well if it comes to you later, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll step in here. I just wanted to thank Gavin for providing gifts. So here's a hat from Ontario AWA, and there's also a lovely pin.
Oh, amazing.
And then, yeah, I wanted to thank Gavin for coming out and talking with us all this evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Releasing his book, which will be, I think, immensely helpful for new birders and continuing birders. And yeah, I'm gonna do a little spiel about AWA as well. So go for it. Please, 1 minute. And yeah, so the last little bit that I'll talk about, I wanted to kind of do a little bit of a talk about AWA. I'm sure many of you know who we are, but we do have a couple more adventures coming up through our A4W program, which is Adventures for Wilderness. We have a couple coming up this weekend. One is hiking the Zurich Ridge, that's down in the Ghost. I say down in the Ghost, but it's just over in the Ghost, and that is on May 23rd. We do have a birding-oriented trip coming up on Sunday, May 24th. That's at Frank Lake. Right now it is waitlisted, but if you are interested, it'd be myself taking people out with AWA, and that would be, yeah, a place that's actually been mentioned a few times, and maybe we'll see a pink-footed goose. I can't guarantee anything. I think it's a little late in the season for that, but and then next weekend we have a couple more. So on May 30th we have Birds and Blooms Walk. That's down in the Rumsey. I say down, I mean up. I just say down. I don't know why. But that's up in the Rumsey. That's over in the parkland. It's one of the few parkland areas that we kind of have left in Alberta. That's a heavily impacted region. And another one is also the Wainwright Dunes, that's kind of a combo. You can do both. They're close to each other, but that's kind of a weekend thing. So it's the 30th and the 31st. It is a bit of a drive, so if you're interested, that's going to be led by Cliff Wallace. And he's a long-time AWA member, president. He's done, I think, pretty much every role you can do there. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you all very much for coming out. And hopefully if we get out there and look at the birds, we'll appreciate them more and be able to help them. Because a lot of them are on the downslide at the moment. So, and one thing Gavin didn't mention is that some of the profits from this book are going towards Birds Canada, which helps with bird conservation and bird research. And to toot my own horn, I made all the maps, so.